The message came on a Tuesday. At first, it was just a strange pattern of signals picked up by the radio telescope in New Mexico. The young technician on duty almost ignored it, thinking it was just another bit of space noise. But something about the regular pattern made him call his supervisor. Within hours, every major space agency on Earth was looking at the same data. By Wednesday morning, the President of the United States was woken up with the news that would change humanity forever. We were not alone. Admiral James Wilson stood tall as he entered the emergency meeting room. At 62, his hair had gone completely white, but his eyes remained sharp and alert. As head of Earth's United Defense Force, he had prepared for this day, even when others called him paranoid. "Play it again," he ordered, his voice calm despite the tension in the room. The large screen displayed a series of pulses, mathematical in nature. Simple at first, prime numbers, then basic equations, then more complex patterns. A universal language meant to be understood by any intelligent species. "What does it say?" asked the defense secretary, a thin man who kept wiping sweat from his forehead. Dr. Lisa Reed stepped forward. She was the best xenolinguist on the planet, though many of her theories had been dismissed as too unconventional. She wore simple clothes and kept her brown hair tied back in a practical ponytail. "The first part is basic communication," she explained, pointing to the screen. "They want us to know they're intelligent. But this section here," she highlighted a portion of the data. "This is coordinates, our coordinates. And this," she pointed to another section. "This is a countdown." The room went silent. "A countdown to what?" someone finally asked. Admiral Wilson's face hardened. "To their arrival." While the politicians argued about how to respond, Dr. Reed continued studying the message. There was something else there, something the others had missed. She worked through the night, analyzing patterns that seemed meaningless to others. The next morning, she burst into Admiral Wilson's office without knocking. "They'd done this before," she said, placing her tablet on his desk. Admiral Wilson looked up from his coffee. "Done what?" "Made contact. Invaded." She pulled up complex diagrams. "Hidden in the background radiation of the message are data packets. I think they're records. And look at these symbols." She showed him images that looked like planetary systems, followed by symbols that could only represent destruction or conquest. "This isn't a friendly hello," Reed said. "It's a warning that they're coming to take our world." Admiral Wilson stood and walked to the window. He looked at the clear blue sky, knowing that soon it might be filled with ships from beyond the stars. "How long do we have?" he asked. "Based on the countdown, 3 months." Wilson nodded. "Then we have work to do." He pressed a button on his desk. "Get me the Security Council and activate Protocol Sentinel." Dr. Reed looked surprised. "Protocol Sentinel? I thought that was just a rumor." 20 years ago," Wilson said quietly, "we captured something in the Arctic. Something not from Earth. We've been preparing ever since, in secret, to avoid panic. You knew they were coming. We suspected. Now we know." He turned to face her. "Dr. Reed, what I'm about to show you is classified beyond top secret, but we need your skills if we're going to survive what's coming." He led her to a secure elevator hidden behind his office bookshelf. As they descended deep underground, Reed realized that humanity had not been as unprepared as she thought. The elevator doors opened to reveal an enormous underground complex. Scientists and military personnel worked around strange technology that glowed with an eerie blue light. At the center stood what could only be parts of an alien spacecraft. "Welcome to Project Sentinel," said Admiral Wilson. "For 20 years, we've been reverse engineering their technology. And now we're going to use it to send them a message of our own." Dr. Reed stepped forward, her eyes wide with amazement. "What message?" Admiral Wilson's face hardened with determination. "That humanity is ready and waiting." The news spread across the world like wildfire. Not the truth, of course, but a carefully crafted story. Scientists had detected unusual solar activity that might disrupt communications in the coming months. This explanation covered the sudden increase in military movements and the global call for resources. Behind closed doors, the real work began. Admiral Wilson stood in the center of the United Defense Force command room. Representatives from every major nation sat around a large round table. Screens on the walls showed factories working day and night, soldiers training with strange new weapons, and scientists examining alien technology. "We have 89 days left," Wilson said. "Project Sentinel has given us a head start, but we need to move faster." An older Chinese general raised his hand. "My government has approved moving all our space technology production to this effort. Our factories are now working 24 hours a day." Similar reports came from around the table. For the first time in human history, countries were sharing their deepest secrets and best technology without hesitation. The alien threat had accomplished what nothing else could: true global unity. Dr. Reed entered the room with new findings. The alien message contains references to at least 6 other worlds they've conquered. Based on the data, they call themselves the Collective. They absorb new species and technology. Those who resist are eliminated. "Then we must be ready to resist in a way they've never seen before," Wilson replied. Captain Mark Taylor watched the new recruits training with the energy weapons. At 45, his body still carried the scars from the Sentinel incident 20 years ago. He had been a young lieutenant then, part of the team that found the crashed alien scout ship. Only 3 of the 12-person team had survived the encounter with its pilot. "Higher stance," he shouted at a young woman struggling with the rifle's weight. "These weapons kick upward, not backward like traditional guns." The weapons were based on the alien technology, modified to work with human biology. They glowed with a faint blue light that reminded Taylor of that terrible night in the Arctic. He still had nightmares about the aliens' eyes, 4 of them, all focusing on him as it spoke directly into his mind. A young aide approached him. "Captain Taylor, Admiral Wilson requests your presence at HQ." In a lab deep underground, Dr. Reed worked with a team of AI specialists. They had built a system that might disrupt the aliens' communication network based on analysis of the technology from the scout ship. The scout ship's communication system used quantum entanglement, she explained to a new team member. But it had a weakness. When too many signals went through at once, the system overloaded. "Like a traffic jam on a highway," the young programmer said, understanding. "Exactly. If we can flood their network with enough false signals during the invasion, we might be able to confuse their forces." In orbit around Earth, new satellites with special shielding moved into position. On the Moon, hidden bases activated defense systems that had been built in secret over 2 decades. Beneath the oceans, enormous factories produced ships designed to fight in space. Admiral Wilson met with world leaders via secure video conference. "We have 2 choices," he told them. "We can appear weak and hope they underestimate us, or we can show them immediately that Earth is not an easy target." After heated debate, they made their decision. Earth would not hide its strength. Captain Taylor entered the massive underground hangar where the pride of humanity's new fleet waited, the UDF Sentinel, built using reverse-engineered alien technology. It was sleek and powerful, unlike any ship humans had designed before. "Beautiful, isn't she?" Admiral Wilson said, appearing beside him. "Will it be enough?" Taylor asked. "By itself? No. But we have thousands of smaller ships ready to launch from bases around the world. And we have something they don't expect." "What's that?" Wilson smiled grimly. "Knowledge of what's coming." The captured alien had a complete database of their invasion tactics. They always follow the same pattern because it's always worked before. But this time, we're ready for them. Taylor looked up at the massive ship. "When do we launch?" "We don't," Wilson said. "Not until they enter our solar system. Then we show them that humanity isn't the easy prey they expect." High above them, the countdown continued. 57 days remained until the Collective arrived. Humanity would be waiting. The countdown reached 0 at exactly midnight Greenwich Mean Time. In the UDF command center, Admiral Wilson stood with his hands clasped behind his back. The room was silent except for the soft beeping of computers and the occasional whispered command. "Any sign of them?" he asked. The radar operator shook her head. "Nothing yet, sir." Then, suddenly, all the screens flickered. The giant main display at the front of the room showed a strange distortion near Pluto. Energy readings off the charts. A technician called out, "Something's coming through." They watched in awe as a tear in space opened up. From it emerged ships, dozens, then hundreds of them. They were massive, with strange curved shapes that hurt the eyes if you looked at them too long. The alien vessels moved with impossible grace, arranging themselves in a formation that resembled a giant arrow pointed at Earth. "They're here," Wilson said quietly. He pressed a button on his command console. "All stations, Sentinel protocol is now active. This is not a drill." Across Earth, hidden defense systems powered up. The secret fleet of human ships, hidden on the far side of the moon, prepared to launch. In underground bunkers, soldiers checked their reverse-engineered alien weapons one final time. A message came through on all Earth's communication channels simultaneously. The screens in the command center changed to show a strange being. It had 4 eyes arranged in a diamond pattern on what seemed to be its face. Its skin was pale blue and seemed to shimmer with an inner light. When it spoke, its mouth didn't move. The words simply appeared in everyone's minds. "People of Earth," the alien said, "we are the collective. We have studied your world and determined that you have reached an acceptable development stage for integration. Your biological and cultural distinctiveness will be added to our own. Resistance is not advised. Your technology is primitive, and your defenses inadequate. You have 6 hours to prepare for our arrival. Those who submit willingly will be treated with care." Admiral Wilson looked at Dr. Reed. "Ready?" She nodded and stepped forward. They had prepared this moment carefully. "Channel open," the communications officer said. "They'll hear and see whatever you say." Wilson straightened his uniform and faced the camera. "This is Admiral James Wilson of Earth's United Defense Force. We have received your message and have one of our own to deliver." He nodded to a technician who pressed a series of buttons. Around the Earth, the planetary shield system activated. A blue glow spread from thousands of hidden generators, forming a protective barrier around the entire planet. At the same time, the human fleet rose from behind the moon. Hundreds of ships built with technology reverse-engineered from the scout ship. The aliens' 4 eyes widened in surprise. Dr. Reed stepped forward. "We've been expecting you," she said clearly. "We found your scout ship 20 years ago. We know your tactics. We know your weaknesses." She paused, letting the words sink in. "We are not prey. Make your choice." On the screen, the alien seemed to be consulting with others off-camera. When it turned back, its mental voice had lost some of its confidence. "This is unexpected. Your level of technological advancement does not match our records." "Your records are outdated," Wilson said, "and incomplete." To drive the point home, he gave another signal. From hidden bases around Earth's orbit, thousands of defensive satellites activated, their weapons targeting the alien fleet. "We will discuss this development," the alien said finally. "Stand by." The transmission ended. In the command center, people began to cheer, but Wilson raised his hand for silence. "This isn't over," he warned. "They're just reassessing. The real test is coming." Captain Taylor, standing nearby, nodded in agreement. "They won't retreat. They'll test our defenses first. And we'll be ready," Wilson said. "All ships prepare for combat." This was just the greeting. The real fight is about to begin. The waiting lasted 3 hours. In the command center, Admiral Wilson used the time to position Earth's forces strategically throughout the solar system. Captain Taylor prepared his squadron. 12 of Earth's fastest ships, each armed with weapons that had never been tested in actual combat. "Remember your training. Taylor told his pilots during the final briefing. They'll expect us to fight in organized patterns. That's how their previous conquests fought. We won't do that. On the main screen, they watched as the alien fleet began to move, not toward Earth as expected, but splitting into smaller groups. They're probing for weaknesses, Wilson said. Standard collective tactic, according to the data from the scout ship. They'll test different areas of our defense to find the easiest path. Dr. Reed studied the alien movements on her tablet. There's a pattern here. Look at how they're dividing their forces. It's mathematical. Almost predictable. Wilson nodded. Captain Taylor, you know what to do. Taylor saluted and left for his ship. 10 minutes later, his squadron launched from the moon base, heading toward a group of 30 alien vessels approaching Mars. Stay in random formation, Taylor ordered his pilots. No patterns they can predict. The human ships moved in ways that would make no sense to conventional military strategists, weaving, suddenly changing direction, some accelerating while others slowed down. To an observer, it would look like chaos. The aliens, however, maintained perfect formation as they approached. Their ships moved as one, like a school of fish. Hold until my mark, Taylor said, his hand steady on the controls. Wait for them to commit to their attack path. The alien vessels fired first, bright beams of energy shooting toward the human squadron. But the random movements of Taylor's ships meant most shots missed. Now, Taylor ordered. Chaos protocol. The human ships scattered in all directions, each following a random pre-programmed path. Then they fired their weapons, not the energy beams the aliens might expect, but small, fast projectiles made from materials found in the alien scout ship. These projectiles were designed to penetrate the specific shielding technology the collective used. The effect was immediate. 3 alien ships exploded as the projectiles hit vital systems. Several others began drifting, their engines damaged. In the command center, Admiral Wilson watched the battle unfold. It's working, he said quietly. Dr. Reed nodded. They're confused. Look at their formation. It's breaking down. The remaining alien ships tried to regroup, but Taylor's squadron continued their unpredictable attacks, striking from multiple angles, never staying still long enough to be targeted effectively. Target their command ship, Taylor ordered. Pattern Delta. 5 human ships converged on the largest alien vessel, firing from different angles. Its shields held initially, but then flickered and failed under the sustained assault. A final shot from Taylor's own ship struck something critical, and the alien command ship split apart in a spectacular explosion. The remaining alien vessels immediately began to retreat. Don't pursue, Admiral Wilson ordered over the comm. Let them go. Taylor acknowledged the order, though some of his pilots grumbled. They'll be back with a better plan, he reminded them. This was just a test. As his squadron returned to the moon base, Taylor received a priority message from Dr. Reed. Captain, we captured some of their communications during the battle. I think I've found something important. Back at the command center, Reed explained her discovery to Wilson and Taylor. The collective has a rigid command structure. Each group must receive specific orders before acting. When Taylor destroyed their command ship, the others didn't know what to do. A weakness, Wilson said thoughtfully. More than that, Reed continued. Their communications show they're genuinely shocked. They've never encountered a species that was prepared for them. In their hierarchy, what we did, being ready before they arrived, is almost blasphemous. We insulted them by being prepared. Taylor asked with a grim smile. Essentially, yes, Reed confirmed, and they don't know how to handle it. Admiral Wilson looked at the tactical display, where the alien fleet was regrouping near Neptune. They'll try again, with a different approach. But now we know more about them than they expected. And next time, Taylor added, we'll be even more ready. 3 days passed without any sign of further attack from the collective fleet. The alien ships remained at the edge of the solar system, seemingly regrouping and analyzing their defeat. In the UDF headquarters, Admiral Wilson wasn't celebrating. They're planning something, he told his officers. The collective doesn't give up after one loss. Tom Miller, a security officer with perfect memory, walked through the busy halls of the base. At 35, he had been with the UDF Security Division for 10 years. Nothing escaped his notice. His mind recorded everything he saw, every conversation he heard, every detail most would miss. Today, something felt wrong. He watched General Peterson walk past, nodding to several officers. The general waved with his left hand. Strange, since Miller remembered clearly that Peterson was right-handed, had always been right-handed. Miller made a note and continued observing. In the cafeteria, he spotted Dr. Patel, a top scientist, eating alone. Her food tray had meat on it, but Miller distinctly remembered her mentioning she was vegetarian just last week. Too many small details weren't adding up. He went to Dr. Reed's lab, finding her working late as usual. "Dr. Reed, can I speak with you privately?" he asked after making sure no one else was around. Reed looked up from her computer. "What's wrong, Tom?" "I think we have infiltrators in the base," he said quietly. "People acting not like themselves." Reed's eyes widened. "The shapeshifters. We found references to them in the scout ship's database, but didn't think they could copy humans so perfectly." "Not perfectly," Miller corrected. "They make small mistakes. They don't copy memories, just appearance and basic behavior." Reed grabbed her tablet. "We need to tell Admiral Wilson right away." "No," Miller said. "Not directly. I saw him with General Peterson earlier. We don't know who to trust." They decided to create a secure testing method. Using data from the scout ship, Reed quickly developed a scanner that could detect the unique cellular structure of the shapeshifters. "It's crude," she admitted, "but it should work at close range." They tested it first on each other, both human. Then they began moving through the base, scanning key personnel while pretending to check radiation levels. 3 officers, a technician, and General Peterson himself registered as non-human. "They're targeting our planetary shield controls," Miller realized as he noted the positions of the infiltrators. All 5 have access to critical systems. Reed contacted Captain Taylor directly, bypassing normal channels. When he came to her lab, they scanned him first, confirming he was human. "We need to stop them without alerting the others," Taylor said after they explained the situation. "If they realize we've discovered them, they might have some kind of self-destruct mechanism." They assembled a small team of trusted, confirmed human soldiers. Moving quickly, they captured the technician first, then the 3 officers. Each was taken separately, quietly, with no alarms raised. General Peterson was harder to isolate. Miller finally managed to lure him to a secure meeting room where Taylor and his team waited. "General," Taylor said as Peterson entered, "we need to discuss the defense rotation." Before Peterson could respond, the soldiers moved in. The shapeshifter fought with inhuman strength, injuring 2 men before they could restrain it. "Why are you here?" Reed demanded. "What was your mission?" The creature that looked like Peterson smiled with too many teeth. "To learn. To understand. You humans are unusual. No species has ever been ready for us before." "And now?" Miller asked. "Now we know why." The shapeshifter's eyes gleamed. "You sacrifice for each other. You die for your kind. This is not logical. This is not efficient. But it makes you dangerous." Alarms suddenly blared throughout the base. "The shield generators," Reed exclaimed, checking her tablet. "Something's happening." Taylor ran to the nearest terminal. The infiltrators must have planted devices. They're transmitting data back to the collective fleet. Admiral Wilson's voice came over the intercom. "All personnel to battle stations. Collective fleet is on the move. They're coming in fast." In the holding cell, the shapeshifter smiled again. "Too late. We have what we needed." "Which is what?" Reed demanded. "Your psychological profile. Humans will sacrifice everything to save others. Now we know how to defeat you." Miller looked at Reed and Taylor. or they just learned exactly why they can't. The collective fleet moved toward Earth with purpose. Their ships formed a massive arrow formation, thousands of vessels ready to overwhelm humanity's defenses through sheer numbers. In the UDF command center, Admiral Wilson watched the approaching armada with a grim expression. "How long until they're in range of our outer defenses?" "4 hours, sir," replied the tactical officer. Wilson turned to Dr. Reed and Captain Taylor. "Then it's time for Operation Lighthouse." Taylor nodded. He had been preparing for this moment. Operation Lighthouse was their most dangerous gamble, a plan so bold that many had called it insane when Wilson first proposed it. "The ships are ready," Taylor confirmed. "Crews are standing by." Wilson addressed the room. "The collective believes they understand us now. They think our willingness to sacrifice is a weakness they can exploit. We're going to show them why it's our greatest strength." While the main human fleet prepared to defend Earth, 5 special ships moved into position behind the moon. These vessels had been built with the most advanced technology from the scout ship, specifically, the ability to make long-range jumps through space. Captain Taylor took command of the lead ship, the UDF Defiance. Dr. Reed joined him, bringing critical data for the mission. "Remember," Wilson told them in a final briefing, "this isn't about winning a battle. It's about sending a message." As Taylor's small fleet prepared to jump, Reed loaded the special message package into the ship's communication systems. "The psychological profile is complete," she confirmed. "Everything we know about how the collective thinks and what frightens them most." Taylor looked at his crew, all volunteers who understood this might be a one-way mission, ready to make history. The 5 ships activated their jump drives simultaneously. In a flash of light, they vanished from Earth's orbit. At the edge of collective space, far from Earth and the main alien fleet, 5 human ships suddenly appeared. Alarms blared across the alien homeworlds as sensors detected the unexpected visitors. Taylor gave the order immediately. "Broadcast on all frequencies, full spectrum." The human ships began transmitting their carefully crafted message, not to the invasion fleet, but directly to the collective's home systems. The message contained images of dozens of Earth-like planets, all apparently armed with the same technology Earth had revealed. The transmission included technical specifications of weapons systems that the collective had never seen before. But most importantly, it contained a single, clear declaration. "We've been ready for centuries. This is our space." Dr. Reed had helped craft the message to exploit the psychological weakness they had discovered in the collective, their inability to comprehend a species that would prepare so thoroughly, their rigid hierarchical thinking, and their fear of the unknown. "They're responding," reported the communications officer. "Multiple signals." On the view screen, confused and alarmed alien faces appeared. They spoke rapidly in their own language, which the ship's computer translated. "How did they reach our systems? Where are these other worlds? How long have they been watching us?" Taylor nodded to Reed. She activated the second part of the message, detailed records supposedly showing human observation of the collective for over 100 years. It was a complete fabrication, but the aliens had no way to know that. "They're sending orders to their invasion fleet," the tactical officer reported, monitoring the alien communications. They're ordering them to halt the attack." Reed smiled. "The bluff is working. They believe we're much more powerful and widespread than we actually are." Taylor wasn't celebrating yet. "Maintain broadcast. Keep our weapons hot. They might still try to attack us here." But the collective ships near them were moving away, maintaining distance. "Captain," the communications officer called out. "Incoming transmission from Admiral Wilson. The invasion fleet has stopped advancing toward Earth. They're holding position." Taylor exchanged looks with Reed. "It worked," he said quietly. "They're reassessing." "But for how long?" Reed asked. "Once they realize we've bluffed." "That's why we need to press our advantage," Taylor replied. "It's time for Phase 2, the parley." A neutral meeting station was quickly built at the edge of Earth's solar system. It floated in space between the human fleet and the collective armada, a simple metal structure with a large circular room at its center. Admiral Wilson personally led the Earth delegation. Dr. Reed accompanied him as their xenocultural expert, along with Captain Taylor and 5 other military and scientific leaders. They waited in the meeting room, seated at a large round table. The door on the opposite side slid open. 6 aliens entered, their blue skin shimmering under the lights. The lead alien had markings that indicated high rank within the collective. Its 4 eyes moved independently, scanning each human. "I am Overseer Zoll of the collective," it said, its thoughts appearing directly in the humans' minds. "We have agreed to this parley to discuss terms." Wilson stood. "I am Admiral James Wilson of Earth. We are here to establish that Earth and its people are not open to conquest or absorption into your collective." The aliens took their seats. Their movements were fluid, almost hypnotic. "Your species has surprised us," Zoll admitted. "No world has ever detected our advanced scouts. No world has ever prepared as yours has. No world has ever reached our home systems as you did." Reed spoke carefully. "We've been studying you for longer than you realize." "So you claim," another alien said. "Yet we find this difficult to believe. Your technology is." It paused, inconsistent, advanced in some ways, primitive in others. Wilson and Reed exchanged glances. This was the moment of truth. Their bluff had worked to get the collective to the negotiating table, but could they maintain it? "Perhaps," Wilson said, "it's time for honesty between our peoples." Taylor tensed, but Wilson continued. 20 years ago, a ship crashed on our world. It wasn't a scout, as you believe. It was a refugee, a survivor from one of your conquered worlds." The aliens shifted uncomfortably. "This refugee warned us about the collective and provided technology to help us prepare. We've been getting ready ever since." Zoll's 4 eyes focused intently on Wilson. "A single refugee could not have provided all this." "No," Wilson admitted, "but it gave us enough to start. Human ingenuity did the rest." For several minutes, the room was silent as the aliens communicated mentally among themselves. Finally, Zoll spoke again. "This is unprecedented. No species has ever defeated a full collective acquisition attempt." "We haven't defeated you," Reed said. "We've simply shown you that the cost of taking Earth would be too high. For both sides. This raises difficulties," Zoll admitted. "Our purpose is to grow, to absorb, to collect the best of all species." "Then collect this," Taylor said suddenly. "Learn from us without conquering us. Take the lesson of preparation, of determination, of unity against threats." Wilson nodded. "The collective has never faced a prepared opponent before. Now you have. Perhaps that is what you're meant to collect from humanity. Not our submission, but our resolve." The aliens conferred again, this time for longer. The humans waited patiently. "We will withdraw our fleet," Zoll finally announced. "Earth will be classified as a sovereign entity, not suitable for collection at this time." "And in the future?" Wilson asked. "Unknown. This situation requires new protocols." Zoll stood. "The collective must adapt. This is uncomfortable, but necessary." As the aliens left, the humans remained seated, hardly believing their success. "They'll be back someday," Taylor said quietly. Wilson nodded. "And we'll be ready, even more ready than we are now." Later, standing at the viewport of the UDF flagship, Wilson and Reed watched the collective fleet begin its departure from the solar system. "What do you think they learned from us?" Reed asked. "That humanity is not prey," Wilson said. "That we stand ready to face whatever comes from the stars." "And what did we learn?" Wilson smiled slightly. "That the universe is more dangerous than we imagined, but that we're more capable than we knew." Reed looked out at the stars. "So what now?" "Now we prepare for the next encounter. Because there's always a next one." In the vastness of space, Earth stood not as an isolated world, but as a warning to any who might threaten it. Humanity is ready and waiting. We always will be.